Thank you for inviting me to come along and share something with you about my vision for Portsmouth as a city. I came to Portsmouth in 1971, not intending to stay here, but really fell in love with the city. And the reason I fell in love with the city, I think, is one of its unique USPs is that the city itself is made up of lots of different communities. When you go to other cities, Manchester or London, outside of the city centre you have suburbs where people live in urban sprawls. But in Portsmouth, one of the unique things here is it's made up of loads of little villages, whether it's North End or Cosham or Southsea, and we've maintained a village identity in those localities. But because the city is so small and compact, that all spills over into the city centre, and you don't get this, if you like, hard commercial centre to a city that you might get in other areas. You get the sense of family and community spilling over in there. And the people in the city maintain that sort of, small local community links that makes them incredibly friendly, incredibly warm and welcoming. And I love that about this city. The other thing I like about the city is that even though it's quite small and compact, visitors can come into our city and they can have an experience in the city centre and just go half a mile down the road to the historic dockyard. They've got another experience there. Wander down to Gun Wharf, a different experience and culture there again, and then onto the seafront. We've got so much to offer here that makes it incredibly attractive. And over my time in here, where we've moved more away from being a naval city into more of a community city, I've experienced a load of change. The atmosphere's changed, and friends who sometimes come down into the city who haven't been for maybe 10, 15 years, all remark on how much it's changed, how much more peaceful it seems to be, how much more friendly it seems to be. So I think as a city, we were great, but we're getting even greater, and I love it, and that's why I chose to stay and live here. And a few years back now, when our local prison, Kingston Prison, was running, I did some work in there called restorative justice, helping the prisoners to have reconciliation with some of their victims of their crimes. And it had such an impact on the prisoners that I realised that actually if we could take this thing called restorative justice and we could make it a bit more flexible, make it adaptable for every level of society in our city, we could become a restorative city. And that's what I started to do. I was looking for a way of doing that. Eventually I teamed up with a charity here called Portsmouth Mediation Service, who have been working on conflict resolution for 20 years in the city, and then with Portsmouth City Council. And together we've been on this restorative journey for our city. Restorative justice works very effectively where there's conflict, but it only touches probably at the pinnacle of the pyramid of conflict escalation, very serious crimes, whereas in reality, everybody in the city, everybody in life has conflict of one sort or another. It could be conflict in our families, conflict in the schools, conflict with our neighbours in the workplace, in the community, in the pub, in the social club. Wherever it is, one thing we can guarantee is that people will have conflict. We wanted to dilute or distill restorative practices, get back to the very core values of what it is and make it into a vaccine where we could vaccinate every man, woman and child in the city with the skills and the ability to deal with conflict themselves wherever it occurs, whatever stage in life, to deal with it so that it doesn't escalate and become something far more serious. And that's a program we've been running with now for, I think, 4 years, maybe 5 years together. We've been running with that program, and we've been taking it into the schools. In the city, we've probably trained 35 schools in the city in restorative practices, all the teachers, the staff, pupils, and even starting to train parents. We've trained the university. There is a team in the university that runs with restorative practices, and more recently we've trained 360 members of staff there. We are training business people in the workplace, community groups. We've even trained our firemen in Cosham and Southsea in the basic skills of restorative. And the journey just unfolds and unfolds. We've had the privilege of working with the various faith groups in the city, and just trying to think of other areas we've touched. City Council, we're training in there. Everybody in the City Council or in the public services in the city who work with families and children have been trained in restorative practices. So we're taking the same language to people at whatever stage in life they want. And for us, certainly at Portsmouth Mediation Service and myself, we're working on the idea of a 10 to 15 year dividend, especially working with children. In the primary schools, we've trained probably 30 primary schools, I think, and they will then go to secondary school where they'll be exposed to restorative again. And if they stay in our locality, Highbury College, which is becoming a restorative college, and then the university. And hopefully by the time they move into the workplace, we will train most of the businesses in the locality how to become restorative businesses. And then those young adults will raise their children in a restorative way. And restorative is so different to the system we already have. When we look at conflict or crime or whatever it may be, we want to punish people for committing those crimes or breaking the rules if it's a workplace, or breaking the rules in the home if there are children in the home. And we want to punish them and hope we can perhaps bring about some internal change within them that will make them better people. And my philosophy is that when we punish people for doing wrong, we don't teach them how to change their inner beliefs and their values. What we do is help them to make a pain gain calculation. I look at the gain in doing something wrong. I now look at the pain. Can I mitigate the pain and increase the gain? Whereas in reality, in most spheres of life, if people don't know how to read, we'll teach them how to read. If they don't know how to write, we teach them how to write. Why therefore, if they don't know how to socially and emotionally engage and behave, do we punish them and hope that that will bring about a change? It doesn't. But the one thing that restorative does is bring people together, help them to realize the impact of their wrongdoing, whatever that may be, and then they become part of the solution in repairing the damage that's been caused. And in that, they grow and mature as an individual and contribute something back into the life of the community rather than the negative effect of their wrongdoing. So it's becoming, I think, something of a social science now. It's gone away from being something restorative justice that was done in the criminal justice system. It's becoming a social science, and we as a city are well on the way to becoming a restorative city. In fact, only last year, towards the end of the last year, I know some friends of mine who work in the field of restorative all over the world, and they have a charity that gives a prize to the most outstanding piece of restorative work that they've come across in the course of a year. Usually that's to an individual or to a small organisation. When they came down to Portsmouth and saw what we were doing in the city, listened to some of the school children talking about the effect and impact of restorative, along with social workers and teachers and business people, they were blown away by what's happening in this city. And for the first time ever, they've dedicated their restorative prize for that year to Portsmouth as a city. And we had the joy of receiving that in the Lord Mayor's parlour. And now we have a trophy there that sits along with all the other finery in the Lord Mayor's parlour that's nominated us as a restorative city. I don't think we're fully there yet, but we're certainly more advanced than any other city that they have come across in the world, let alone in this country. And that's my vision for Portsmouth. Please join in the journey with us. If you would like to know more about how you could be an influencer in promoting restorative practices, perhaps in your home with your neighbours, in your schools or in your workplace or even in your social clubs. Whatever you'd like to do to be part of the journey, please get in touch with myself at Portsmouth Mediation Service or Portsmouth City Council, and they will put you in touch with the right people who can help you on that journey.